Hello there, welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be talking about the Killer Meteors, released by 88 Films. Now this is a really obscure Jackie Chan vehicle from quite early on in his career. It was made during the Lo Wei era, like obviously Lo Wei being the guy that directed Bruce Lee and his hits such as The Big Boss, Fist of Fury. It was made during that period when they were trying to market Jackie. It was made when they were trying to find out how they could make Jackie the next, global star, the next sort of Hong Kong Chinese superstar phenomenon. And they tried Jackie in a numerous number of roles. They tried him in like comedy roles, serious roles, and what in Killer Meteors, which is really unusual what you see, is Jackie Chan playing a villain. He is the enemy in the film. And a lot of people don't like this film because of that fact alone. Another film that comes to mind when Jackie is the villain is Rumble in Hong Kong, otherwise known as Young Tiger. It's very odd when you see Jackie Chan, who's usually, the lovable kind of, Mr. Nice Guy kind of person. Here he is playing a villain. But as I say, this is very early on in his career. I believe it was made after New Fist of Fury, which was also directed by Lo Wei. Again, trying to market Jackie as the next Bruce Lee, as like fitting in with that Bruce Lee style, which he clearly... Jackie was always going to do his own thing. He was going to be very different from Bruce Lee. But yeah, again, here today we're going to talk about 88 films release of The Killer Meteors. I'll say really obscure film. It's got a bit of a cult following, this one. So it's like with all my reviews, just going to be telling you what I think about, what I thought about it. Do I like it? Is it a good film? Is it not? Is it worth your time checking out? That kind of thing. I mean, the hero in this film is actually played by Wang, otherwise known simply sometimes as just Wang, and he was like a real big deal back in like the early 70s, late 60s, like regarding sort of kung fu and Hong Kong cinema, in films such as The Chinese Boxer, One-Armed Swordsman, look, he was, but like I say, a really big deal. I believe this film was, I think it was made in 1976, and I think it was made around the time when his popularity was sort of lagging. It wasn't quite up to his like sort of big. He wasn't maybe necessarily getting the results he was before at the cinema, Wang Yu. But yeah, this is put Jackie Chan and Wang Yu together, and it was actually an interesting fact is it was actually Wang Yu that helped get Jackie Chan out of the Lo Wei situation, because obviously Jackie was so unhappy with the Lo Wei productions and just the way it was going due to the lack of control, just the lack of like effort and input that he could put into the production. Him and Lo Wei often argued, and he had this contract that he couldn't get out of, and Wang Yu actually come to his aid to help Jackie Chan get out of that, because obviously Wang Yu was sort of a sort of regarded staple sort of Hong Kong sort of star, but to get Jackie Chan out of that contract, and Jackie Chan later repaid the favour to Wang Yu, appearing in his films such as Fantasy Mission Force, which I have not seen for a long time. I'd love them to bring that out, 88 Films, if you're listening, to do a Blu-ray release of that. Fantasy Mission Force and Island of Fire, sometimes known as Island on Fire, or sometimes known as The Prisoner, with Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Wang Yu, Andy Lau. There's a real... It is a good film, Island on Fire. But anyway, we're here today for The Killer Meteors. It's a lovely note I will mention on this slipcase, on this case by 88 Films. They put for Wang Yu, 1944 to 2022, because he unfortunately died this year. But I thought that was a really... It's sort of, you don't really see it. It's not overly clear. But I just thought that was a lovely little mention there to Jimmy. Just a little mention, like a little tribute to Wang Yu. With this release, you get the usual things, slipcase, audio commentary, reversible sleeve with the original artwork, poster, which I love, the booklet, all the great things you come to expect from 88 Films. But as I say, this film was made in 1976, and the basic premise of this film is Wang Yu's character plays Killer Misha, and as I say, Wang Yu in this film is actually the lead, and Jackie Chan's character wants his wife killed. Because she's poisoned him. We're led to believe she's poisoned him, and he's only keeping him alive solely because she likes his reputation and his wealth. So that is the main reason she's keeping Jackie Chan alive, and Jackie Chan's character wants Wang Yu to sort of kill her, track her down so he can be free, get the antidote, and just help get Jackie Chan out of this mess. And Jackie is hardly in this film. It's very much a Wang Yu vehicle, so it's don't go into this film expecting a lot of Jackie Chan. So I think that's why a lot of people sort of disregard this film, because it's when it was released. I remember when I bought it on video back in like a lot of the time when I was buying a lot of Jackie Chan's, back around '97, there was a release of it. And like everything with Jackie, even if he's only in the film just a small bit, just for 10 minutes, like a walk-on part, a supporting role, anything, they will market it as a Jackie Chan film. Like the distributors will market it as a Jackie Chan film because they know it will get sales. Like Jackie Chan obviously being more popular than so many people from Hong Kong, that he's like the global megastar from Hong Kong. So if you saw a lot of people, unless you're like a kung fu movie buff that knows inside out, if you said, well, it stars Jimmy Wang Yu, not everybody necessarily is familiar with Jimmy Wang Yu. So yeah, Jackie Chan was just plastered all the cover of this VHS video, and I thought, great, new Jackie Chan film. And to my dismay, like, he's hardly in it. But I actually quite like this film, but we'll get to that in a minute. There are many plot twists and turns in this film. Nothing is ever quite what it seems. The plot goes from one thing then to the other, and you're never really quite sure what's going on. It looks like they just chucked everything against the wall and just saw what stuck and just go with it. And like I say, it's not actually straightforward, this film. There's a lot of little bits where this happens and then that person's actually alive when you thought they were dead, that kind of thing. The film is quite straightforward in itself. All characters have like a sort of hidden agenda. There's always something that they're was hiding from somebody else, that kind of thing. And you're never quite sure if Jackie Chan's character is actually the real villain of the film until the end, where him and Jimmy Wang Yu have this final bout on top of wooden poles and then fight. I mean, the fight in this film is nothing to write home about. It's not like the best choreography you'll ever see. But Jackie Chan, he does get to do a few flips and some nice little flourishes here and there, some nice little movements in his first encounter with Jimmy Wang Yu. They fight twice in this film. Jackie Chan, I'd say, really does try and get... Obviously, he didn't have much control over the sequences, like I mentioned earlier, during this period. So the fight sequences are not too bad. They're not brilliant by any means, but it's, they're okay. They're passable. And Jackie Chan does get some nice sort of flips and sort of acrobatics in there, which is always good to see. They make a point. They do make a point, like with, if you've seen any other Wang Yu films, like Master of the Flying Guillotine, films like that, they make a point that Jackie's wife has got 4 bodyguards, because obviously Jackie wants her killed and got rid of so he can get rid of all this poison and be free of this thing that she's got over him. They set up like she's got these 4 bodyguards, right? They make out there's these 4 like big villains that Wang Yu's got to encounter at some point, and he's got to get by them in order to get to her. They really do make a point of this and try and sort of nail this one on home. There's like a guy called Devil Monk, and there's another guy with like magnetic hands. And they all have some sort of gimmick going on about them. Like I say, very much like sort of something like Master of the Flying Guillotine, where all the characters are very sort of like cartoons. There's strong characteristics in what they do and their kung fu and their fighting style. But when Wang Yu encounters these characters, they're so easily disposed of. Like, there's no big, massive fight or set piece. They're just like dismissed straight away. I was expecting like a big showdown, something quirky, something, like a long-winded fight scene. Wang Yu disposes of them no problem. And the fact is, he has like this weapon, which is like the killer meteors, which is basically like this exploding ball that he sends up into the air off this stick, and then it explodes in people's chests and things like that. You have to see it to know roughly, to get an idea of what I'm talking about. This film is very much a Wang Yu film, as it is a Lo Wei film. It's definitely not a Jackie Chan vehicle that as we're accustomed to. But I did look on the Wikipedia for this film, and it does, under directors, it does say Wang Yu and Lo Wei. So I'm pretty much sure that Wang Yu did have... Obviously, Wang Yu directed a lot of these films. I'm pretty sure Wang Yu did have a lot to do with the say and the production and direction of this film behind the camera. I don't think it was necessarily very much Lo Wei that was in charge, that was calling the shots on this production. As I said, this was made during the Lo Wei period, like when Jackie Chan was making films such as Spiritual Kung Fu, Magnificent Bodyguards, To Kill with Intrigue, these kind of films during that era, sort of 76 to 78, that kind of time. the fight scenes, like I say, they're not the best. You do remember this was before Jackie Chan hit the big time. This was before Jackie Chan become a global phenomenon like he is now, and this was before sort of the hits with Snake and Eagle, Shadow, Drunken Master, Fearless Hyena, Young Master, that kind of thing. This was before Jackie. He had to sort of just go with whatever said. You know, he had to sort of. He was still learning the trade at this point. He was still trying to make a name for himself, and he was just basically taking any role he could get and being cast as a villain. You know, why not? I mean, look at like what Jet Li done and Lethal Weapon 4. You know, like, why not take a chance? Why not play a villain? Why not see if that, you know, would help my career? Might, you know, give it a go. I might enjoy it. That kind of thing. You know, why not try these things? Give them a shot. We did, like I say, with the fight scene with Wang Yu, the ending one is sort of on poles in this sort of circle. The first one is sort of in sort of Jackie's sort of headquarters at his palace kind of thing. We do get some nice flips and acrobatics from Jackie, but it's nowhere near what we eventually got later on. Even just a couple of years later in Snake and Eagle, Shadow, Drunken Master. You know, thanks to people like the Yun Clan and all that. Though not one of Chan's best, and the fight scenes are very lacking, and, you know, this is a Wang Yu film, which isn't a bad film. I mean, a bad thing at all. I mean, Wang Yu, absolute legend. So many classic films to his name, as I say, Chinese Boxer, One-Armed Swordsman, Master of the Flying Guillotine, to name but a few. I believe the film is worth watching, even just to see Jackie Chan as a villain, just to see something different, and just to see... you know, just something very different in Jackie's back catalogue, just to see something that isn't just Jackie playing, the stereotypical good guy that we come accustomed to. But just don't go into this film expecting it to be, from start to finish, a Jackie Chan vehicle, because it really isn't. He doesn't get overly that amount of screen time. It's worth watching alone, I think, just for Jackie's sort of death scene, or what his supposed death scene, where you think he's been poisoned. I mean, hammy isn't the word. It's worth watching just for that, because it's such a funny scene, sort of unintentionally, the way he sort of, it's just the way he drinks the poison. It's just, you know, it's just not, it's funny to watch. I'm not commenting on Jackie's acting, but it just so fits in with the style of the film, what this film's like. And but so, in my opinion, I would say check it out. Just, it's not brilliant, it's not great. It's, regardless of whether Jackie Chan's in it or not, it's not the best film in the world. But I still think it's one worth checking out from early Jackie Chan's career. And if nothing else, just to see him play a bad guy, which is something you do not see that much.